What would you do if you found yourself stuck between love and an impossible decision? How far would you go to protect the person you love, even when the choices seem unbearable? Hi everyone, welcome back to Unheard Stories, where we uncover some of the most dramatic and emotional real-life experiences. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from today? We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the twists and turns we share in each episode. Today's story is about love, loss, and a choice that will leave you questioning everything. Let's get started. Ethan, a 30-year-old software analyst, had always been the steady foundation in his relationship with Sophia. His calm demeanor and problem-solving nature made him the go-to person in tough situations. Deeply in love, Ethan envisioned a future filled with happiness and stability. However, he was unprepared for the emotional storm that would upend their lives. Sophia was everything Ethan admired: gentle, thoughtful, and deeply connected to her faith. As a devout Catholic, she lived her life guided by moral principles and compassion. Despite her kind nature, Sophia struggled with inner demons, having battled depression in the past. Ethan's support and understanding had been her anchor in those moments, but their bond would soon face its greatest test. Sophia's mother, a staunch traditionalist, was the kind of woman who saw the world in black and white. Her rigid adherence to religious doctrine often clashed with Sophia's emotional needs. Though she claimed to act out of love, her harsh judgments and controlling behavior only served to deepen the cracks in Sophia's fragile state. Ethan and Sophia had been together for 3 years, building a life based on trust and mutual support. They shared a quiet routine, weekend movie nights, Sunday dinners, and occasional road trips to escape the monotony of city life. While Sophia often struggled with self-doubt, Ethan's encouragement helped her see her worth. To Ethan, their relationship felt like a safe haven. Before the incident, life seemed straightforward. Ethan was busy with work, and Sophia spent her days volunteering at a community center, finding solace in helping others. They often spoke about their dreams: a small house with a garden, maybe a dog, and someday children. It was a shared vision of a future filled with hope and love. But that future was shattered in an instant. The assault left Sophia broken and afraid, forcing Ethan to step into a role he never anticipated: the unwavering protector of someone who had lost her sense of safety and self. What came next would test not only their love but their very ability to navigate the moral and emotional challenges ahead. The day Ethan got the call was one he would never forget. Sophia's roommate, her voice shaky and hurried, told him Sophia had been attacked while walking home through the park. Ethan felt the ground fall from beneath him as the details poured in. He dropped everything and rushed to her side, his heart pounding with worry. When he arrived, Sophia was a shell of herself. Her usually bright eyes were dim, her face pale, and she trembled as if the air itself was too heavy to bear. She refused to report the assault to the police or even go to the hospital. "I can't, Ethan," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I just can't." Ethan, torn between wanting justice for her and respecting her fragile state, didn't push. Instead, he promised to stay by her side no matter what. The weeks that followed were agonizing. Sophia withdrew into herself, barely eating or sleeping. At night, she often woke up screaming or crying, haunted by the memories of what had happened. Ethan did everything he could, cooking her favorite meals, sitting with her through therapy, and holding her during the nights when the weight of her pain became unbearable. He wanted to fix it, to make her whole again, but he felt powerless. Sophia's depressive episodes deepened. Some days she sat for hours staring at the walls, lost in thoughts she wouldn't share. Ethan tried to be her rock, even as the strain on him grew. "We'll get through this," he told her one night, holding her hand. "You're not alone." But deep down, he wondered if she would ever heal. A month later, just as they were beginning to navigate the aftermath of the trauma, another bombshell dropped. Sophia took a pregnancy test after weeks of missed periods, and the result was positive. The room spun as they stared at the test in silence. "It's not yours," she said quietly, her voice breaking. Ethan already knew. He had been away on a work trip when the assault happened. This pregnancy wasn't theirs, it was the attackers. Sophia collapsed into tears, the reality of the situation too much to bear. "I didn't want this," she sobbed. "I didn't want any of this." Ethan held her, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and helplessness. This pregnancy was a living reminder of her trauma, and it threatened to unravel the fragile progress they had made. They tried to discuss their options rationally, but emotions ran high. Sophia, a devout Catholic, initially leaned toward terminating the pregnancy, believing it was the only way to begin healing. Ethan supported her, though he felt conflicted about the decision. "Whatever you choose," he told her, "I'll be here for you." But their plans changed after Sophia confided in her mother. Her mother's reaction was swift and harsh. "You can't do this," she told Sophia, her voice dripping with judgment. "It's a sin. You'll regret it for the rest of your life." Sophia, already fragile, was torn apart by the ultimatum. Her mother went further, warning that if Sophia terminated the pregnancy, she would cut all ties with her. "You won't be my daughter anymore," she said coldly. The pressure was too much. Sophia told Ethan she couldn't go through with the abortion, her mother's words echoing in her mind. "It's not the baby's fault," she reasoned. "Every life is sacred, no matter the circumstances." Ethan tried to understand her perspective, but his own emotions boiled over. "I can't do this, Sophia," he said firmly. "I can't raise a child that isn't mine, that came from—" He couldn't even finish the sentence. The tension between them grew unbearable. Ethan felt trapped, unable to see a future where he could be a father to this child. Sophia, on the other hand, felt equally trapped by her faith, her trauma, and her mother's unrelenting expectations. They reached an impasse. Either she kept the pregnancy and risked losing Ethan, or she terminated it and risked losing her mother. Their relationship, once a safe haven, was now a battleground of conflicting emotions and impossible choices. Sophia cried herself to sleep most nights, while Ethan wrestled with guilt and anger. The assault had already taken so much from them, and now this pregnancy threatened to destroy what little they had left. For the first time, Ethan began to wonder if love was enough to get them through this. As the days passed, the tension between Ethan and Sophia only grew. The pregnancy became an unspoken wall between them, a constant reminder of the trauma they were trying to overcome. Sophia, once so certain of their love, now felt the weight of two impossible choices: to keep the pregnancy and lose Ethan, or to terminate it and face her mother's wrath. Sophia's faith had always been her guiding light, but now it felt like a prison. Her mother's harsh words echoed in her mind. "It's a sin, Sophia. If you do this, you're no longer my daughter." Those words had broken something inside her. She couldn't bear the thought of losing the one person who had been her constant support, her mother. Even though their relationship was strained, Sophia still craved her approval. It felt like her mother's love was the last connection to normalcy she had. Ethan tried to be understanding, but his own limits were being tested. The thought of raising a child conceived in violence was something he couldn't reconcile. "It's not about the baby," he told her one evening, trying to remain calm. "It's about what it represents. Every time I look at it, I'll see what happened to you. I'll see the pain in your eyes, and I can't live like that." Sophia's response was heart-wrenching. "I know," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But it's not the child's fault. I can't punish it for what someone else did. How do I live with myself if I make that choice?" Ethan knew she wasn't wrong, but it didn't make the situation any easier. He was angry. Not at her, but at the circumstances, at the attacker, at the universe for putting them in this impossible position. The breaking point came during a heated argument. "You're asking me to give up everything," Ethan said, his voice shaking, "to pretend like this isn't tearing me apart. I love you, Sophia, but I can't love this. I can't raise this child." Sophia sobbed, her voice barely audible. "And you're asking me to kill a part of myself to keep you. I don't know if I can do that." Ethan knew he had to be honest, no matter how much it hurt. "If you choose to keep the pregnancy," he said, "I can't stay. I'll always love you, but I can't be a part of this." The words felt like a dagger, but he knew it was the truth. He couldn't compromise on something so deeply tied to his own emotional survival. Sophia begged him to reconsider. "Please, Ethan," she cried, clutching his hand. "Don't leave me. I can't do this without you." But Ethan stood firm. "You're the one making the choice, Sophia," he said gently but firmly. "Either you keep the pregnancy and I leave, or you terminate it and we move forward together. I need you to understand that I can't see a future for us otherwise." The ultimatum devastated Sophia. For days, she wrestled with the decision, torn between her love for Ethan and her fear of losing her mother. She barely ate or slept, and Ethan watched helplessly as she spiraled deeper into despair. He wanted to comfort her, but he knew that his stance was part of what was breaking her. It was the hardest thing he had ever done, standing firm while the person he loved fell apart. The tipping point came when Sophia received another call from her mother. "If you go through with the abortion," her mother said coldly, "you'll never see me again. You won't be my daughter, and your father, God rest his soul, will never forgive you either. You'll go to hell, Sophia. Is that what you want?" Sophia broke down completely, calling Ethan in tears. "I can't do it," she said, her voice shaking. "I can't lose her too." Ethan's heart shattered, but he knew he couldn't stay. "Then we're done," he said quietly, the weight of the words nearly unbearable. "I can't be here for this." Ethan packed his things and left that evening. As he closed the door behind him, he felt a mix of guilt and relief. He had drawn his line, but it felt like he had left a part of himself behind. For days, he questioned his decision. Was he heartless for walking away, or was it the only way to protect his own mental health? A few days later, Sophia called him. "I need to talk," she said, her voice steadier than it had been in weeks. Ethan agreed, unsure of what to expect. When they met, Sophia looked exhausted but resolute. "I've decided to go through with the abortion," she said, her eyes filled with tears. "I realized I was letting my mother control me, and I can't live like that anymore." Ethan felt a wave of relief but also guilt for the pressure he had put on her. "Are you sure?" he asked, wanting to be certain. Sophia nodded. "I need to move on, Ethan. And I need you with me." It was a turning point for both of them. The weight of the decision was immense, but for the first time in months, they began to feel like they could see a way forward. The road ahead would be long, but together, they decided to face it, one step at a time. As if the weight of their decision wasn't enough, another storm began brewing, this time, from Sophia's own family. Her mother, already furious over Sophia's decision to move forward with the abortion, escalated her attempts to interfere. What started as judgmental phone calls soon spiraled into a full-blown campaign to control Sophia's life. One Saturday morning, Ethan answered a knock on the door to find two police officers standing on the porch. His heart sank as they asked to speak with Sophia. Confused and alarmed, Ethan called Sophia over. She appeared, her face pale, and nervously invited the officers inside. They separated them immediately, one officer speaking to Sophia in the living room while the other took Ethan into the bedroom. The officer interrogated Ethan, asking invasive questions. How long has she been staying here? Has she had contact with anyone else? Has she left the house recently? Ethan, feeling his frustration grow, answered each question as calmly as he could. Finally, he asked what this was all about. "We received a report of possible abuse," the officer said bluntly. Ethan's stomach turned. "Who made the report?" he demanded. The officer refused to answer, leaving Ethan seething with anger and disbelief. When the officers left, Sophia burst into tears. "They asked if you were hurting me," she cried. "If I was being held here against my will." Ethan felt a surge of fury but tried to stay calm for her sake. "Who would say something like that?" he asked. Sophia hesitated before whispering, "My mom." The realization hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. Her mother had called the police, accusing him of abuse, all in an attempt to stop the abortion. Ethan's anger boiled over. "She crossed a line," he said, pacing the room. "This isn't about her beliefs anymore. This is about control. And I won't let her destroy us." Sophia, torn between her loyalty to her mother and her love for Ethan, begged him not to escalate the situation. "Please don't press charges," she pleaded. "She's my mom. She's just scared. She'll calm down." Ethan reluctantly agreed but set a firm boundary. "If she tries anything like this again, I won't hold back." The tension reached a breaking point the next day when Sophia called her mother to plead for peace. The call lasted less than 2 minutes before Sophia dissolved into sobs. Ethan took the phone, his voice steady but cold. "You're a disgrace of a mother," he said before hanging up. He held Sophia as she cried, her grief for the relationship she once had with her mother pouring out in waves. The betrayal didn't stop there. Days later, her mother called again, demanding to know if Sophia had gone through with the abortion. This time, Ethan answered. "Yes, it went perfectly," he said, his voice calm but firm. Her mother unleashed a tirade of venomous words, calling them sinners and accusing them of ruining her family. Ethan listened in silence before replying, "How very Christian of you," and hanging up. The ordeal with the police and her mother's relentless manipulation took a toll on Sophia. "I feel like I've lost everything," she admitted one night, tears streaming down her face. Ethan held her close, whispering words of comfort. "You haven't lost me," he said. "We're in this together." Despite the chaos, Sophia began to find her strength. She realized that her mother's actions weren't about love. They were about control. "She's not the person I thought she was," Sophia said one evening, "and I can't let her control my life anymore." For Ethan, the experience only deepened his resolve to protect Sophia. He had already lost so much. He couldn't bear to lose her too. The incident with the police was a wake-up call, a reminder that sometimes the people closest to us can cause the most harm. But it was also a turning point, a moment where they decided to reclaim their lives from the shadow of manipulation and trauma. Together, they made a pact to prioritize their own healing and to set boundaries with anyone who tried to interfere. Sophia blocked her mother's number, and Ethan worked on rebuilding the trust and security that had been shaken by months of turmoil. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, they felt like they had a chance to move forward together. The day of the abortion arrived with a mix of fear, sorrow, and an odd sense of relief. Sophia had spent weeks preparing herself emotionally, with Ethan by her side every step of the way. They had talked to counselors, medical professionals, and each other countless times, ensuring this was truly the best decision for both of them. Still, the weight of what lay ahead hung heavy in the air. Sophia chose the surgical method for the procedure, wanting it to be quick and definitive. Ethan sat in the waiting room, his heart racing as minutes felt like hours. He thought of everything they had been through, the sleepless nights, the fights, the emotional wounds, and he prayed this would be the start of their healing. When Sophia emerged, she looked fragile but resolute. Ethan rushed to her side, taking her hand. "It's done," she said softly, her voice trembling with both relief and sadness. They left the clinic in silence, but as soon as they got home, Sophia broke down. The floodgates opened, and she sobbed into Ethan's chest, releasing months of pain, fear, and anguish. "I feel like I can breathe again," she whispered through her tears. "It's like the weight of that night is finally starting to lift." Ethan held her tightly, his own emotions threatening to spill over. For the first time in months, he saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, a glimmer of the Sophia he had fallen in love with. They decided to take the following week off from work, needing time to reconnect and process everything that had happened. They spent quiet mornings together, talking about their feelings, and quiet evenings cooking meals and rediscovering the little joys they had once taken for granted. The shadows of the past hadn't vanished, but they were beginning to fade. To mark a new beginning, Ethan suggested a camping trip, a chance to get away from the city and their troubles, even if only for a weekend. Sophia hesitated at first, worried it would feel forced, but eventually agreed. The trip turned out to be exactly what they needed. It rained the first night, of course, because luck was never on their side. But instead of dampening their spirits, the sound of raindrops on the tent felt oddly soothing. Huddled together in the small space, they talked for hours. Sophia opened up about the moments when she felt like she couldn't go on, the pain that consumed her, and the hope she now dared to feel. "I'm not the same person I was," she admitted, "but maybe that's okay. Maybe I can be stronger now, even after everything." Ethan listened, his admiration for her growing with every word. "You are stronger," he told her. "You've been through so much and you're still here. That's what matters." For the first time in months, Sophia smiled. A real, genuine smile that lit up her face. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to both of them. The days following the camping trip were lighter. There was still work to be done, of course. Therapy sessions continued, and they both knew healing was a long process. But they had turned a corner. The abortion, though painful, had given them a way to move forward, free from the constant reminder of the trauma. Sophia's mother remained a shadow in the background, attempting to contact her several times. But Sophia, with Ethan's support, stood firm. "I love her," she said one evening, "but I can't let her destroy my life. Not anymore." The road ahead was far from smooth, but Sophia and Ethan were determined to face it together. They made plans to start fresh. Smaller steps like decorating their apartment and bigger dreams like traveling somewhere new. The chaos of the past few months had left scars, but it had also brought them closer, reminding them of the strength they could find in each other. "We've got this," Ethan said one night as they lay in bed, fingers intertwined. And for the first time in a long time, they both believed it. As Ethan reflected on everything they had endured, he felt a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. The past few months had tested their love in ways he could never have imagined. From the trauma of the attack to the impossible decision about the pregnancy, they had faced challenges that could have torn them apart. Yet here they were, still standing, still together. Ethan knew the journey wasn't over. Healing was not a straight path, but a winding road full of setbacks and small victories. Watching Sophia smile again, even just a little, filled him with hope. Her resilience inspired him, and he was in awe of her strength to reclaim her life despite the weight of everything she had gone through. Their love, though battered, had grown deeper through the struggle. They had learned to lean on each other, to set boundaries, and to fight for their own peace. Ethan was proud of how far they had come and hopeful for the future they were rebuilding together. What would you have done in Ethan's place? Could you make the same choices? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Unheard Stories for more powerful tales of resilience and hope.